Good morning. By midlife, many of us will be tested by a traumatic life experience, which I call a personal plane crash. These midlife jolts can either propel us or derail us, taking us back to square one. These jolts can create a lifetime of purpose, creating new relationships, new careers, new worldviews, and a clarity of your mission on earth. That jolt came to me on January 15th, 2009, when I survived the plane crash known as the Miracle on the Hudson. Well, the next few minutes I'm going to share with you about how by being resourceful and by employing your own personal leadership skills, not only you can always survive, but you can also have your life transformed. As we crossed over the George Washington Bridge, I think everything that I learned and everything that I trained for came into play. For the 10 years prior to that day, I was the head of security for a guy by the name of Tony Robbins. You ever heard of Tony Robbins? I had a chance to travel with him, but I learned and absorbed everything that he taught in addition to all the people that he hung with. So now I have the opportunity to go all over the world and share these lessons and strategies from that day. And my goal for you today is this. So you might hear one or two things I'm going to share with you. This is the next time you face your own personal plane crash, which might be a fire, a flood, a health scare. Can you go ahead and start that for me, please? Health scare, anything that might be. Nobody will survive it, but grow from it, and also learn a lot of different things about your life. As we crossed over the bridge, I did two things. First thing I did is I prayed. For whoever that dude is up front, man, just get me down to one piece. I don't want to come back in multiple body parts. The second thing I prayed for is the last person I spoke with, who was my client in Brooklyn, to call my wife to tell her that I loved her. And the third thing is I prayed to God to forgive my sins. I don't want anything between me and God this point. We're going down, I want to go up, and it's not looking good for me right now. Second thing I did is I reached down in my briefcase and got my wallet out and shoved it down in my pants. Well, something did happen. It looked like it was probably going to happen. At least they could claim my body. As we crossed over the bridge, about 60 seconds later is when we crashed into the river. And it was a hard hit. When we hit, I went all the way back in my seat and all the way up my seat, just like that. When I came back up, I looked out the window because I was in seat 15A, and I saw light. So I knew I had a shot, but I wasn't out. Because if you saw how the plane landed, water started coming in immediately. And depending where you were on that plane, I was towards the back of the plane. Water was running from ankle knee to waist deep, just like that. Now my game plan was get to the aisle, get up, and get out. But when I got to the aisle, something happened that would change that day for me, but probably changed the entire direction of my life. My mom kicked into my head. My mom passed away in 1997, but there was something she would tell me when I was a child that popped into my head at that moment. It was, if you do the right thing, God will take care of you. And the right thing for me was you help other people first. So I went towards the back of the plane to see if anybody needed help. And I got behind everybody, and I started making my way like everybody else. Now you got to remember, towards the back of the plane, it was about waist to chest deep water. So every time you took a step, you ran into something, and you couldn't tell what you were hitting because it was so dark. But the first light that I saw was on the right side of 10F. And I started to get out like everybody else. But when I started to get out, I looked out, it was an amazing sight. There was no room on that wing for me. There was no room on that boat for me, but it was an amazing sight. People were already being rescued. I don't know who said this, and I give them 100% of the credit when they said that the crew got everybody down that day, and the crew and passengers got everybody out, but the real heroes of the day were the first responders. And the first of the first responders was the New York waterways, the ferries. They were there about 2 minutes after this plane crashed. Now, if you look at this picture, you notice I'm holding on to a lifeboat. And the reason why is this. I don't know anybody here knows anything about the Hudson River. I've learned a lot about it. It's got a very fast current. This plane was actually floating down the river while this was going on. So our little lifeboat kept going in and out from the plane while this was going on, and they, like who reads the instructions? No one reads the instructions. It's actually tethered to the plane. But they didn't know that, so they kept yelling at me, hold on, and that's why you see me holding this little lifeboat, waist deep in 36-degree water for about 7 minutes. And a few minutes later, I felt the plane shaking, and I found out later it's because a tugboat hit it as it was backing out, and all of a sudden I felt water going on my backside, and the first thing I thought about was Titanic. I remember that movie when that boat tipped up and sucked everything down with it, and my thought was, man, do not be sucked down in a plane. You're this close to getting out of here, man. Do not be sucked down in a plane. So I stopped here, and I thanked my mom and my dad. Because if they hadn't made me get swimming lessons when I was a child, I may have never been able to get off this plane. So that's when I said, I'm out of here. So I jumped in and swam to the closest boat that I could find, had to be into that wing. Anybody here seen the movie Sully? Anybody? A few people? Remember that movie, that ferry they had a plastic ladder they rolled down? That's the kind of ferry I went to. So when I got there, I got my backside up close, and they're yelling, climb. I yelled up, can't. Then I heard my mom again, because the word my mom hated most in life was the word can't. See, if you grew up in our house, you said, I can't, and my mom said, if you can't do it, you're going to do it. See, after she passed away, I realized my mother's whole worldview was, if you can't, you must. So I got one arm up, and I felt somebody grab it. Got the other arm up, I felt somebody grab it. To this day, I do not know who these two gentlemen are. They threw me on that ferry, and that's when my miracle started turning into my mission. See, I've had the opportunity to go to places like Fort Hood. I got to go to Oklahoma a few years ago after those tornadoes. A few years ago, I went to the eastern shore of North Carolina after Superstorm Sandy. And just last fall, I got to go to Pompano Beach after Hurricane Irma. And one of the things I find out is this: people like me get taken care of. But often, those people go through these traumatic life experiences, go into a depressed state. But I didn't. See, people kept telling me that I was going to have depression, that I was going to have PTSD, that I was going to have need therapy. But I didn't. I started asking myself, what's the difference between me and them? And that's what set me on this mission. I not only go out and speak around the world, but also see how I could help people who've been through a traumatic life experience. So about 4 years ago, AARP magazine called me and wanted to interview me. And candidly, I didn't know why they wanted to interview me. I knew nothing about AARP, and candidly, I thought I was too young for it anyway. But when they called, they said they found out that I'd helped the American Red Cross raise over $8 million, and they wanted to know the strategies I used to grow from this experience. So I agreed to do the interview, and this is the interview right here. It's in AARP magazine. And when they shared a term with me, it's called PTGS, post-traumatic growth syndrome. It's how do people grow from a traumatic life experience to go into a depressed state? And what I've learned is depression is a state. Depression is a state just like joy or happiness or hope, and any state can be changed just like that. So you can be happy one moment, and you can be sad the next moment, right? And you can do it by one of three ways. First way, and the fastest way, through your physiology, the way you move your body. This is why you keep seeing me move. This is how I manage my state when I'm on stage. The second way is through your internal dialogue or the questions you ask yourself, and that's how I managed my state that day on the plane. And the third and most powerful way is through the power of focus, because where focus goes, energy flows. See, the question I asked myself that day on the plane, and I continue to ask myself, is how can I add even more value and enjoy the process? And I realized enjoying the process is probably the more important part. So you can add value all day long, but if you're not enjoying it, you're not happy. How many people you see go to work every single day? They're adding value, and they hate their jobs. So I learned that you can by managing your state, you can grow from these traumatic life experiences. The second thing I realized and learned is something that Tony taught me and teaches all of his audiences, is that the meaning you attach to something produces the emotion of your life, and emotion is your life. Meaning equals emotion. Emotion equals life. You should write this down or memorize this. This is the most powerful tool you can use because meaning informs your emotional state. So you can build a ladder of positive and empowering meanings and effectively change the direction of your life. And it all starts with becoming conscious of the meanings you are constantly creating. This technique is called reframing. And it's the most powerful tool you can use to change the meaning to anything. And that's when change and growth happens. Growth in your relationships, where you start focusing on other people instead of your own personal significance. Your careers change, where you may be working for a company or an organization now, but you say, I want to maybe work for a non-for-profit or become an entrepreneur. And the third way you can grow is through your worldview, and that's the way I grew the most. See, I'm not proud to say this, but I was pretty judgmental back then. I would size people up pretty quickly, but I witnessed something when I was in the green room of the early show, and I saw some guy go into rage, and me, like everybody else, was like, what's wrong with this dude? But all of a sudden I found out that this guy was going through a divorce. He lost his job, and I said, how many times in my life have I judged somebody this quickly and it's cut off a relationship or an opportunity? I said, if I can just change that one thing, become less judgmental, do what Martin Luther King said, judge people by the content of their character, know the backstory. And that changed everything for me. That's why I'm here today, because I changed my worldview. And that's what my midlife jolt did for me. See, midlife jolts can either derail you or propel us into reclaiming and remaking our lives instead of becoming devastated and demoralized. Listen to me. Everybody in this room is going to have a personal plane crash in your life. And that's something that's going to happen. It's going to be up to you to choose how you handle it. See, the events of January 15th, 2009 were out of my control. But one thing I could control, or two things I could control, was the way I managed my mind and the meaning I attached to things. And if you can control those two things in your life, and it's totally up to you on how you choose to do it. You can choose to grow your life, you can grow your relationships, your careers, your worldviews, and you get a clarity of your mission on earth. And then, my friends, so your life will become transformed. See, if I have the honor to ever speak for you, I do a much longer keynote version of this, And I do also workshops and trainings. But some of the organizations that really like and sort of appeal to this are first the sales organizations. I had 31 years in sales. I was a top producer in every company I was with. So I do a lot of sales conferences and sales kickoffs because they love the story about leadership, but also about overcoming adversity in challenging times. The second kind of organization is financial institutions, banking, especially banking associations. I've spoken over 20 banking associations and 10 credit unions and 5 major life insurance companies across the world. Also, I do a lot of safety days in the manufacturing environment because I can come and talk about risk assessment and anticipation. And also in healthcare, because they love to talk about leadership and overcoming adversity. And then the final area, which is pretty evident, is first responding units, whether it's fire, law enforcement, medics, or even now the military. I just spoke at MacDill Air Force Base for 19,000 service people. So I speak to all these type of different organizations. So if and when you'd ever want to check me out, you can check it out. We have references for all these different areas. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. And before I get off stage today, I just want to give you an opportunity because I want you to leave with something. If you would text 797979 and put the word Brace for Impact in, you can take a picture of that. I'll send you a free video of what's called Overcoming Adversity in Challenging Times. Sort of a mini version of what I just talked about. So you can go home and check it out, and it's me just talking about this subject in a more defined area. Because I speak really about 12 different areas. And in my book, Moments Matter, I really go detail, and this is one of those areas I talk about. So I want to say thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here today. Angela, thank you for inviting me. I say may God bless you, and may God bless your organizations, but most importantly right now, may God bless the United States of America. Thank you for having me today. Thank you.